Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in once again. Today I have the honor of introducing to you another awesome member of the EMS community. As you guys know, I showcase people who show up for EMS in a positive manner. And today's guest does just that. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Chris LaCava. Chris LaCava is an EMT. He's also an educator in the EMS field. And kind of like my last guest that I had on the channel, the Combat Midwife. If you haven't already seen that interview, I'll link it up in the right-hand corner. Go check it out. But just like the Combat Midwife, today's guest has found a way to combine all of his passions, all of the things that he loves to do. He's combined them together and made it into a career. And I really love that just because not a lot of people get to do that. You may have hobbies that you like or things that you enjoy to do, but very rarely do you get to make them into a job. Chris is an EMT. He's an educator in the EMS field. He is a licensed acupuncturist and has taught martial arts for over 20 years. And another really cool fact about it is that he has traveled doing seminars and classes all over the country for all of the things that I just listed. And he's also a fellow YouTuber. His YouTube channel is called Healer Warrior. Definitely go check him out. And as always, I'll put all the links down in the description box below. Please help me welcome Chris to the channel. All right, welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on my channel today. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. I love featuring people who show up for EMS in a positive way. And for those watching who, maybe don't know, most people wouldn't. I met you through YouTube back in, I want to say 2020 is when I first became aware of your channel.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's when I started noticing your channel and just the positivity. And I really, really appreciate that because I will say I'm not the hugest fan of the salty medic kind of vibe. Of course, there's going to be memes where you see and you're like, oh, I've been there.
You're right.
I know how that goes. But overall, I just don't really vibe with the negativity. I love your channel. And just to get everything started, you are involved with the medical arena. And I say medical arena because it's not just EMS. You are involved in medicine in different capacities. And you are also heavily involved with and instruct martial arts. So I would love for you to kind of go into your background. Could be chronological, doesn't have to be.
It's probably best to start chronological so I don't go off on a wild tangent. Probably the first thing would be martial arts. So I started martial arts in approximately 1984. Good year, Van Halen. I hate to say this, and it really sucks, but I got bullied and I got beat up a lot. So I wanted to do martial arts, and looking back, hindsight being 2020 and all, I had what was considered anger management issues. So I went to my parents and I was like, hey, I want to do martial arts. And my mother was like, you can't control yourself now. We ain't giving you a license to kill. No way. So I was like, ugh. But it wasn't until a friend of ours who was a black belt or a down rank in another martial art and said, you know what? It's probably just what he needs. If he finds the right instructor, set him straight. And I'm so thankful that they took that advice because my life would have been totally different without martial arts in my life. I love martial arts. Yeah. It doesn't matter what style, good people, good training, I'm down. And I love training. Throughout the years, I trained in a few different martial arts, but probably my primary martial arts has been Hapkido, which is a Korean martial art. I was fortunate enough to, over the years, travel back and forth to Korea. And I got my master's certificate and my 4th degree black belt through Grandmaster Lim Young-soo in Daegu, South Korea. That was an awesome experience over the years. And then I'm also a graduate of Stockton Multi-Style Eskrima, which is Filipino martial art, or an FMA. If you know anything about Filipino martial arts, a lot of sticks, knives, swords, edged and impact weapons kind of stuff, which is awesome. It's definitely a thrill ride, we'll say, to train. Especially with the guys from Stockton. I'm also a advanced knife instructor under Hak Hakheim. I'm not big into ranks and titles, so sometimes I kind of get a little caught up on like, what am I? Because it really doesn't matter. It's about training. So I'm an advanced knife instructor under Hak Hakheim. That is pretty much my background, as far as we can go into teaching a little bit later on, but that's like my martial arts background. And then next up would be acupuncture. I was a semi-professional or professional musician. When I turned like 16, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. That it was like no doubt in my mind, I was going to be a musician. And, throughout the years, I had people tell me, you'll never make it, don't bother. And I was like, whatever. And I was like, somebody's got to make it. Why not me? That was what I was doing. And I've been blessed. I've written and recorded music, been on CDs, radio, TV. I went on tour in Europe, so really a blessed life as far as being a musician. But one day I went, what if I don't make it in music? Ah, dude, that was the beginning of the end of my career right there. I was dumb. So I was like, well, if I don't, what am I going to do? I don't want a job. I want a career. I want something I can be proud of, something, I can always get better at. So I did a lot of soul searching. I was like, well, I like helping people. I like medicine, but I didn't necessarily want to be a doctor. Eastern thought, culture, and philosophy has been in my life since I was a little kid. So I kind of put all that together and was like, acupuncture. So I ended up going to acupuncture school at Tri-State College of Acupuncture in Manhattan, down in New York City, and graduated there in 2004. I was accepted and completed a 2.5-year apprenticeship with the head of the Japanese department there, Emily Connor, and went to Japan and was able to train with my teacher's teachers there, which was amazing. That was an experience in and of itself. Traveling around Japan, training with all these different teachers was like from movies,
Yeah.
So I did that, and since 2004, I've been in private practice doing acupuncture and enjoying that. And then next up was EMS. And the funny thing is, I didn't even want to be an EMT.
No?
No, I have more of like a preparedness mindset. So I have a family. I got kids. So I'm at that point where I'm like, God forbid something should happen to them. I want to be able to help them out. And if it really goes sideways and we have to call 911, I want to know what the EMTs and paramedics want to know prior to getting on scene so I can help a rapid transport. So that was my entry into EMS. Going through class, I enjoyed it. The acupuncture background definitely helped a little bit. The anatomy and physiology, the pathophys, all that kind of stuff. That definitely helped. There were some times where I was like, ooh, what the heck is going on? I don't know if I got this, but
Yeah.
great instructors, fellow classmates who were awesome, made it through. No worries. Then ride-alongs. Yeah, ride-alongs happened. And as soon as I did that, it was like I was hooked. I was like, I guess I got to do this. This was cool. It was exciting. I was helping people. Everything was different. No 2 days were the same. It was like exciting. So I ended up working in Connecticut for 2 services. One was a municipal 911 service, and I was working there for quite some time. And then I doubled up and did both. The municipal service, I also went with an urban 911 private practice that also did transports. A lot of experience through that. There were very difficult times with that as well, but once again, looking back on it, it was an awesome experience. There's nothing I would say, oh, I wish that didn't happen. No, it was all good. So, and yeah, so that's been and then I ended up becoming an EMSI in Connecticut. It's the certification for an EMS instructor.
Okay.
Because as come to find out, I love to teach. And so I went that route, and I ended up becoming an FTO at one of my services, and just kind of sharing the love kind of thing. So that's kind of my EMS journey as well. That's how I got started.
And I'm curious to know, since you obviously, like you said, you have extensive knowledge of anatomy, physiology, even more so than the typical EMT or paramedic because of what you went through with acupuncture. Did it ever, since we're really medication driven on the EMS side and not really natural homeopathically driven, does it drive you crazy a little bit, the difference?
No, because you get different types of people that do acupuncture. You get some people that are very only Eastern medicine, that, you know, Western medicine is poison and all that kind of stuff. Really, I'm not, that's not how I roll. It's like each Eastern medicine and Western medicine have their benefits.
Right.
Take advantage of both, you know? If something works well, work with that, you know? And I find that working with physical therapists, working with doctors, we end up having better results, you know, for the patient. And that's really where it's at. A lot of people can make it sound like, you know, it's very esoteric and very mystical and all that kind of stuff. No, a lot of it's about, it's all right. So in a nutshell, Eastern medicine is about balance. Thank you. Good night. You know, that's pretty much it. But how we attain balance, you know, is different Eastern and Western, right? If we look at, let's say, stomach acid, right? If you have too much, you end up having problems. If you don't have enough, you can't digest your food, right? So you can't say that something is bad or good. It's about having a balance of what it is compared to everything else around it. So it's not as, there is a lot to learn. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But I just don't like how people like to make it look so mystical and kind of, you know, man on the mountain kind of stuff. It's really not.
I mean, I thought it was a win when I was going through my state scope when I first became a medic, and I saw pressure points as a possible treatment out in the EMS field. I was like, what? This is awesome, you know? They obviously did not talk about that when we were in school. So the fact that it was in some protocol that I read, I thought, that's really cool that they considered.
Really?
Yes.
Where do you remember where you saw that or what it was for? What was the?
It was for nausea control.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a lot of people, you know, they talk about pericardium 6, which is, you know, in the middle of the risk for seasickness, motion sickness, nausea. So like this point's this large intestine 4 or Hogu or however you want to call it. This point right here, I'm trying to get it on camera. Right? Yeah. So this point right here is a point that people say, oh, use that for a headache, use that for this or whatnot. But really, each point has a job to do. Really, that's the easiest way to explain it. Has a job to do. And certain times that job is more suited for this or that. So depending on the type of headache, this is a really good point. You know, for some headaches, it's an okay point, but certain types of headaches is awesome. But, you know, so when we can't normally in acupuncture say, have a text, like a cookbook or a menu kind of thing. Well, you know, if you have this, you know, if you have this, you do this point, and this point. Well, it really depends why you have this. And then you can choose different points to make that better. It's not as straightforward. That was a big thing in acupuncture school, because as the Western learner, we like A goes to B, goes to C, goes to D. We like very linear thinking. Where Eastern medicine is more like a web, or more like getting dropped off in the middle of the ocean and just swim. No matter which way you go, you'll find land, but just swim. And you build a body of knowledge around that, which is very interesting. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult to grasp. It's like, just give me the answer. What's the answer? Well, it's this. Could be this. It could be this, you know?
Yes.
So
yes.
That is one of the issues that people can face in Eastern medicine.
Yeah. Well, I am curious about your YouTube name. So whenever I first started seeing your comments pop up, I thought, Healer Warrior. I mean, now it makes a little bit more sense, but explain to like the audience exactly why you came up with that title.
I grew up on Saturday morning Kung Fu theater. So like Kung Fu movies were my thing. Me and my friends growing up, we would love watching the old Kung Fu movies, Shaw Brothers movies, and all this kind of stuff. And like occasionally there would be characters who were like these awesome martial artists, and then they also did, you know, acupuncture or ground up herbs and did Eastern medicine or had a clinic and whatnot. So like they were always we'd always consider them the warrior healers, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, years later, I go to acupuncture school, and, you know, some people be, you know, like, oh, Chris, you're going to be the warrior healer, huh? And so with that, you know, I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking about EMS when I decided I was going to start the channel. And I'm like, with all the crap we go through, it's like, we see people on the worst of their days of their lives. We may see them in the last moments of their lives. The amount of violence that happens to EMS and medical providers, all this other stuff, the burnout, the PTSD, all that kind of stuff. In order to go through that, you're kind of a warrior to pick up, step up, and get back on shift, when necessary. So to me, that's a warrior. So everybody in EMS is a warrior. And so taking that old warrior healer kind of thing, that was kind of like a joke or kind of what we had. But I'm like, everybody in EMS is a healer warrior to me. So I thought, that was perfect for a channel. So
Yeah.
wasn't about me, it's about everybody, because the channel is about our community.
Right.
So if we can help people within our community gets better, gets stronger, and that's the way to roll.
It's a really cool title, and it makes more sense. And I think you're totally right. I mean, we definitely face things that are very normalized to us,
Mhm.
and we don't really notice maybe, I guess, long-term effects that it can have
Right.
on you mentally, emotionally, physically. I kind of want to go into your tour. We haven't even mentioned that, how you've toured the US. And I just want to talk about just how you taught classes, and not only in martial arts, but also in different areas of medicine. Just kind of give me a breakdown of what made you get into that. And I guess your tour that you started, it was in 2020, correct?
2017.
2017, and it ended in 2020 because of
Unfortunately.
COVID. Yes.
Originally, my teaching started with martial arts. And when I started teaching martial arts, a lot of things started coming to light for me. And I really enjoyed it. It was definitely a win-win type situation. It was a win because I benefited. It was a win because the student benefited and all that. And one of the things I found about for me is that when I taught, it made me a better practitioner. It's like, let's just say, for example, if I learned something really quick, I caught on something really quick. I may not necessarily be able to teach that to someone the same way because they don't learn the same way. So now I have to look at whatever I'm teaching in a different perspective, whether it's my delivery, audiovisual kinesthetic, or the way I go around to teach it. Like, how do I make it so they can grasp onto it and really internalize it? How is it that it will become familiar to them? And all that kind of stuff. And the other thing, I couldn't believe that it could actually, like, people would say that to me prior to me teaching, and I was just like, yeah, okay. But then when I started doing it, I'm like, oh my God, this is really it. And the other aspect of that is, it really gives you a solid foundation, because no matter what you do, martial arts, EMS, acupuncture, whatever, there comes a time you're good, and you kind of won't really think about what you're doing because you're just rolling with it because you've done it so many times and you've done it, so it's like you're not really thinking about the whys. You're really just like, I'll do this, boom. All right, we got this. No, right. It's all good, right? But in teaching, it really strengthens your fundamentals of the whys you're doing what you're doing. So I thought that was really cool because, like, when I started teaching acupuncture at Tri-State and also University of Bridgeport's Acupuncture Institute, there were things I was teaching when I was doing my lesson plans and all that, and I'd laugh at myself and I was like, this is something I do every day, and I had totally forgotten that's why I do it. I just did it because I originally knew why I did it and it worked. Eventually, it was just I was going through the motions because I knew it was going to work. Didn't really care about why, you know what I'm saying? In certain aspects, I knew why to a certain extent, but like the deeper foundations of it, and that by doing that and refreshing that, builds you a solid foundation in your knowledge base that you may not think about, but then can lead you into a different direction, which is phenomenal. So that was my benefit for teaching. The other thing about teaching is it helps the student. I'm very ADD, but for some reason, I remember beginning martial arts. I remember beginning acupuncture school. I remember beginning EMT school. And I remember some of the hardships that I had. And if I can help somebody, get through that to the next level,
Absolutely.
it's gold for me.
Yeah.
So teaching just was like that thing for me. And so as far as me doing this tour and whatnot, it was just like a growing passion to do that. So I started teaching martial arts in like 2000, and I was doing like seminars. I would go out and like go to other schools and do seminars and whatnot, or have talks with people and blah, blah, blah. And then in 2003, I did my first martial arts camp. Oh my God, it was awesome. I was like in my element there. I was being the martial art addict I am. There's all these different martial arts and martial artists, and I was just like picking their brains, and everything was amazing. And then the following year, I taught at that same camp. I went there the first year, and then I taught there the next year because I had, hey, sometimes you just got to go for it, right? And I said, hey,
Yeah.
If you're ever interested, I'd love to teach here. And they're like, all right, let me see what we can do. And sure enough, they sent me an email. And I was like, thank God, that was awesome, right? So in 2003, I started teaching at martial art camp. My contacts grew. I was gaining more respect in the martial art community and whatnot. So more people were inviting me out to their place. That's where I got, teaching gigs in Texas and Virginia and Colorado, and I'm sorry, not Colorado, California, New York, all these, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, blah, blah, blah. But it was putting myself out there to these camps. And so I was doing from 2003 on, I was just traveling all over the place. And then I was like, you know what? It kind of feels like when I was touring, with the band, I was kind of doing the same things. So I was like, you know what? 2017, I'm putting on a tour.
Yeah.
So because of the things that I was teaching modern combatives and defensive tactics. I was teaching traditional martial arts. Then on the other side, I was teaching Eastern medicine and emergency medicine. And the host would bring me out for one or more topics. So because I was doing both those aspects, I called it my Beat 'em and Treat 'em tour. So from 2017 to unfortunately COVID,
Yeah.
it was my Beat 'em and Treat 'em tour. So I would have T-shirts made up. I had sponsors, and we go out, have a good time, teaching and just, hey, once again, it's one of those things that feels good here. I like getting out, meeting new people, training, and being able to be a part of somebody's growth process. It really fulfilled me here, and then COVID hit, and thank God for EMS because that job didn't go down.
Well, first of all, I like the title, Beat 'em and Treat 'em, very appropriate. And I think it's really cool. I recently interviewed, I know you know her, Combat Midwife, Combat Midwife. She does very similar things. She goes all over the country teaching not just OBGYN, midwifery things, but she also trains in EMS. She trains medics. That's Combat Midwife. She trains the combat medics. And I just was fascinated that she had the ability to kind of bring her passions together. And I see the same thing in you. I mean, you have a variety. No, you have a variety of different passions, and it's obvious. The music thing is something that I learned about today. I know you mentioned it briefly the other day when we spoke, but not into I didn't know you toured Europe. That's super cool. So you found a way to kind of combine them all. And a lot of people can't do that. You should be very proud of yourself in that regard. But I wanted to kind of highlight one of the classes that you mentioned to me, the defensive tactics, and what a benefit it would be to EMS providers.
Well, I mean, assaults on EMS providers, that's like our dirty little secret, Yes. Nobody really wants to talk about it. It's part of the job where we kind of just blow it off and just like, it's part of the job. But to be honest, what other job do you know that it's cool to get assaulted on job?
Yeah.
So we got to definitely change the mindset, to make this better. We can have laws put in place and all that, but we have to change the mindset of, the EMS personnel, be like, yo, dude, that's not cool. You know,
Yeah.
that's not okay to be verbally, physically assaulted. And to be honest, it's so, you know, it is an issue because if you've been in EMS a hot second, you've probably been assaulted, you know,
Yes.
from a low level verbal assault all the way up to getting your butt handed to you, you know.
Yeah.
God forbid, you know, some people end up getting killed, which is, you know, I can't even imagine, but it happens, you know. So I do teach a defensive tactics course, which is different than all the other stuff I teach because this is actually a nationally certified program. I'm a certified instructor in DT4 EMS, defensive tactics for EMS. It's not just for EMS, it's actually for first responders, for healthcare workers, you know, hospital settings and stuff like that. But I teach their program, you know, their curriculum, because when I teach it, I'm doing a certificate program. The students get certified in DT4 EMS. So, and I like the program. I really do. One of the cool things is that you can use it for CMEs, you know, for your national
Oh yeah.
ranch.
Yeah.
That's always cool. And the way it was developed was kind of cool. It was developed by Kip Tsort, and I don't know if you know of him. Some people do. He's been big. He's been in GEMS and EMS Pro, but he's been in magazines and stuff like that. But one of the thing I like about it is that Kip he's a veteran, retired law enforcement officer, retired medic. So when he put this course together, he was looking at it from totally different areas,
Oh yeah.
not just like, say, a martial artist did a defensive tactics program. He's looking at it from one point. He or she is looking at it from this point. You know, if you have somebody who's just law enforcement, they're looking at it from this point, a medic this point. He's looking at it. Oh, and he's also a martial artist as well. So he's looking at it from many different viewpoints. And each one has a benefit, a positive and a negative, you know, like our rules of engagement are different than for law enforcement or for someone in the military. It's not the same.
No.
We have totally different rules of engagement, totally different. Our objectives are different. You know, we're not there to detain. We're not there to take somebody into custody. We're there to help people, and that's it, you know. And it's like, it's tough for EMS. It can be tough for EMS practitioners because I really don't know anybody that came into EMS and was like they came in wanting to bust somebody's butt, you know, or you know, coming in to kick somebody's ass. You know, I don't know many that came in that way. So we had this do no harm, but then we also had this do not get harmed or don't get killed, you know, and there's a duality there that, you know, is tough on people. So trying to help people get through that is part of the program, which I like. The other things I like about the program is, on a very superficial level, the techniques. When you have a defensive tactics program or a self-defense program, you know, the techniques, they run a continuum. It's really like, on one end, you have techniques that are so silly, and the probability of them working is nil to nothing. Then on the other end of the spectrum, on the other end of the continuum, you have high level skills that students will never put the amount of time and effort in to practice those techniques to make them effective. So you're pretty much on that continuum, you know?
Right.
The DT4 EMS, I like because it's kind of like right in the middle, you know? They're techniques that, you know, easy to practice. They base them off of natural movement. They're also, hey, if you screw this up, it's not the end of the world. That's the other thing. It doesn't put you in a worse situation if you screw up, because hey, we're human, we mess up, you know. So I like the techniques, but a little bit deeper about the program is, I like that it's a full spectrum program. They don't just talk about the techniques or the skills. It is a huge portion of it, but it's not all. They talk about before, during, and after the altercation. Each section is different. There are aspects that you don't think about until you're in it. And when you're in it, you're not always making the best decisions, you know? So it's always best to understand it prior to. So with this, the before, We talk about the winning mindset. We talk about the value of good customer service. We talk about situational awareness. We talk about pre-violence cues. And here's a big one that I think is awesome. And I never really thought about it until they brought it up, which was defining the difference between a patient and an attacker. We are the only people, we're the only industry, healthcare providers, the only industry that have to define patient versus attacker. And that's tough. You know, if you don't have a groundwork to define it, you will, one, hesitate, and two, you're going to get more hurt, or worse, which we can't have. So we have that for the before. I mean, there's more to the before. We talk about pre-arrival stuff and all that kind of stuff. But we're talking during, of course, we're talking skills. We're talking defining levels of force. Most people don't know what levels of force are. What can you do against this? Can I do this? Can I do this? I don't know. Am I going to get in trouble? All that kind of stuff. And we also talk about how the brain processes information. So you go from a stimulus to action and what the brain goes through. And we talk about the OODA loop. We put it in with another analogy we call it race. So it's about how the brain, if you see something and you want to do something, that's like, you got to go through the process. Have you ever heard of OODA loop?
No, I haven't.
So Ooda was something, it was an Air Force captain. Can't remember right now, but a gentleman in the Air Force, he was a pilot, and he developed this to help people process information while they're fighting. OODA, observe, orient, decide, and act. That is the process that the brain goes through, right? So first you have to observe something. Let's just take, for the example, tying a shoe, all right? You have to observe, oh, my shoe is untied, all right? So you observe it. Then you have to observe, you have to orient. You end up going through your options. You're like, all right, well, I can bend over to tie my shoe. I can raise my foot up to tie my shoe. I could ask somebody else to tie my shoe, or I could just kind of just go, screw it, and don't worry about it and not tie my shoe at all, right? Then you decide, you go through all those options. You say, this is the best option for me right now. And then you act upon it. So this is the thing. When you see people freeze, like let's take the Boston bombing, for example, right? There were some people that jumped right in the action, some people that just stood there. They were like
in shock.
Right. So what happens there is they could have got stuck somewhere in the OODA loop, right? Between observe. If they get stuck at observe, means they can't comprehend what they're seeing. Like, is what I'm seeing real? Like some people who have never seen violence, never seen injuries, major injuries, they're like, is that real? Is this what being made up or whatever? The brain can't comprehend that, right? Or they're going, or they get stuck at observe, orient. If they get stuck at orient, then they're like, well, what are my options? Oh, I don't know, and they get stuck there. Deciding, if you get stuck there, you're like, well, I could do this or I could do that, but I might get in trouble if I do this, or if I do that, it might not work, or, oh, if I do this, somebody's going to make fun of me, or what. And you kind of get stuck there and you can't act, and you get stuck in between decide and act. So we talk about that kind of stuff and how to minimalize it for your aspect, but then also how to mess with your attacker and reset and try to get them stuck in the OODA loop. I mean, it sounds very esoteric and it sounds very deep and whatnot, but it doesn't have to be. And we go over that kind of stuff. How to make the OODA loop or race end up working in your favor. And then we talk about after the conflict, you're coming down from that adrenaline surge. You're like, some people are just like, oh God, you're like, they're done, they're spent. Some people are like wired up. They're like, they're just, after an altercation, you might get the shakes. It happens, right? And in that kind of situation, afterwards, once again, you may not always make the best decisions. So we talk about that. We talk about documentation, how to document. We even give an extra, like a handout about a sheet you can do to like just check off boxes. It's like your incident report kind of thing, just checking off boxes. Because the more you have to write, the less confident you can be in as far as, recalling it properly. So checking off boxes, like for example, we have, you have a picture of just an outline, and it'll say attacker's injuries. And then you'll have another one that says your injuries, and you just check off the boxes where you're injured, and then we have other areas as well. And some services will accept that as your incident report, which is really nice. It makes it easy. The easier we can make it during that high stress, chaotic situation, the better. Not only that, but we also in the after part of it, we talk about the legal aspect, because if somebody gets hurt, I'm pretty sure you're going to court, right? So we talk about how to testify, how to, dress, the posture you may want to use, positive posturing and negative posturing. We talk about how do you answer questions from attorneys that are either on your side or against you. What are they looking for? And what's the best way to answer it? So like all that stuff is within this program. And I've never seen a program that in depth on that many aspects of self-defense, specifically for first responders. I was just like, wow. So when I first took the course, I was like, it impressed me a lot. So I ended up becoming an instructor, and ended up flying down to Georgia for that. And it was well worth it. And I've taught quite a few classes, and looking to do more, definitely.
It sounds like something obviously that's really needed, and you're totally right with violence and just assault being our dirty little secret of EMS. And I mean, we differ from law enforcement because obviously law enforcement, they learn tactics and are able to perform those tactics when they're in danger. Whereas we don't have the training, and sometimes we're up for scrutiny on how we handle it. Let's say you're one of those that does get your butt handed to them in the back of the ambulance, and you fight back because you have no protection and you're just doing what you can to protect yourself. Is it always going to hold up in the court of law? Who knows? Who knows?
Right.
You hope it would, but it doesn't always. And it's like you said, the aftermath is huge. How the judge rules could be entirely based on your narrative, your report, how they view first responders in general. And that's sad, but it is 100% true. I've been assaulted, and I mean, if anything, it taught me situational awareness. That's for sure. It's one thing that I really lacked when I started, and I had to get a crash course in it after I got into some scuffles, because people who are altered or angry or having, I mean, it could be a variety of different reasons why they have these things happen, but I think that sounds like a really, really cool course and something that's so needed and not talked about. It's hidden. And I like to see other fields, healthcare, but other aspects of healthcare, like let's say nursing. I see that they're coming out more and speaking about patient on nurse violence. And I'm glad to see that, because man, I see our ER nurses go through it, and it's so unnecessary.
People have that false sense. Well, if you're an ER nurse, you just dope them up with ketamine, you're good to go. I'm like, yeah, you ever try that?
Yeah.
Right. Patient on PCP, see how that works for you, one person.
Right. When you need 10 people to hold somebody down just to give them the ketamine. Our ER nurses are amazing, and unfortunately I feel a lot of pity for them sometimes, because they really are powerless in the same aspect. So
and that's why a good course would help you define that.
yes.
Levels of force with self-defense. And I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, if I was to put my hands on somebody, like when I say put my hands on it, I mean like right. It's more like there's three things that gotta happen, right? One, they have to have the intention, the ability, and the opportunity. Those are the three things that really need to be there as far as to justify self-defense, especially in a court of law. Because I had a friend of mine who taught self-defense in the martial arts, the legality of self-defense in martial arts, and those were three big topics. He goes, that's what we look for. He was a lawyer. He says, yep, when we have a case, those are the three things we look for, and you got to make sure if they're not there, it's a lot tougher to try to defend, a
Yeah,
self-defense case. In the case of EMS, if you have those things and we know that we need them, you are in a much better place to defend a defense case.
absolutely. And I kind of wanted to go back into your tour just briefly. I know we talked about how it stopped in 2020 due to obvious reasons, COVID, like our whole world's just stopped. But now it's kind of our new normal.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, do you plan on getting back into it?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As soon as things start dying down, I'm going to get more up on it and start booking gigs. Like I'm doing it now, but it's very, one here, one there. Like in May, I have one scheduled in California. Very excited about that. But right now, just kind of keeping everything at home. A lot of it is, I just moved. So all that new moving stuff is kind of taking precedence over me touring and doing that kind of stuff.
Understandable. Moving just sucks. Like
Yeah.
just in general, it sucks. The new place may be great, but the moving process, it just sucks.
It's physically exhausting, it's mentally exhausting, it's financially exhausting.
Expensive. Yes, absolutely.
It's all the above. I actually read somewhere that it was moving is one of within the top 5 of the most stressful times in people's lives.
I could
I believe it.
Yeah, for sure. Especially a big move, like, because you went from Connecticut to North Carolina, right?
Yep, upstate South Carolina, right near North Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and that's a pretty big move. In any state.
Well worth it.
Yeah, for sure. So if somebody is kind of watching our interview and listen to us and they do want to book you for martial arts, EMS, acupuncture, Eastern medicine, how would they go about getting you to do that?
Probably the best way would be either Facebook. So on
Okay.
Facebook, I have a teaching page, which is Christopher LaCava, MSLAC. And then probably Instagram would be the other one. So on Instagram, I actually have 2 pages, one for specifically EMS, which is Healer Warrior on YouTube. That's the name of it. I know it's long, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then the other one is more specified for martial arts and acupuncture, and that's Warrior Healer 8. So I just split them, right? So,
Okay, good deal. Yeah, and I'll make sure to include all the links down in the description box, so it makes it easier for people to find it. Okay, so now that we know all about the classes that you offer and the tour that you did, and you're going to resume eventually, are you still on the ambulance? Are you still in EMS?
I am.
Are you?
So,
Okay, cool.
Yay! So because of getting an acupuncture practice takes time and money to build a patient base, and martial arts takes time to build students and money to build a training area and all that kind of stuff or whatever. That all took time. So EMS I already had. I can just jump right in and start making money and paying the bills that are piling up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up getting a job in upstate South Carolina for a combination 911 transport service. I'll be honest, it's a cool place. The supervisors are cool. I worked at cool places before, don't get me wrong, so it's not taking anything away from them. But this place, the supervisors are so dang cool, and the coworkers are very helpful, very friendly. I'm like, man, this rocks. So I was very, very blessed to be able to score that job.
Yeah.
So doing that.
Cool. I always love to hear that when people are still, I mean, even if they're not full time, that they, stay on the box in some capacity. I love to hear that because obviously I love EMS. But so do you have like merch or ways that people can support you in any way? Or is it mainly just come follow me, learn about what I offer kind of thing?
Okay. So ways to help support me or the channel, whatnot. You have the basic, hey, check out the channel, like and subscribe, all that
Yeah.
stuff, right? You can follow me on Instagram. As far as more financial ways and stuff like that, then it's more like hire me, bring me on out to hang out and do some training, whether it's traditional martial arts, modern combatives and defensive tactics, Eastern medicine or emergency medicine. I also, each tour I had t-shirts made. Like that was one of them. I don't know if you could see that.
Yes, I can.
So each year I have a different shirt. that I do. And I put the sponsors on the back and all that. So that's one way. And then in 2020, I actually did a shirt, and then I went full bore, and I also did challenge coins. I don't know if you could see that. So this is a challenge coin I had made up, and then I ended up second side, thanks to COVID. I had an inscription put on it. Hope is staying a light despite the darkness, because 2019, 2020 definitely sucked for all of us.
Yes.
These I sell as well. So if anybody wants them, feel free. I don't have too many left, but if somebody's interested, if you want one. I collect challenge coins, so I thought it was the coolest thing. So
no, that is really neat. So I did have a question after all of your traveling, and now I learned you even did more traveling than I thought you did. So to Japan, Europe, all of that. So what, after all of your seminars, the ones you attended and the ones that you put on, what do you think your biggest takeaway from all of that is?
I'm going to digress just for a second. Prior to doing the Healer Warrior channel, I had a YouTube channel a long time ago, but it was just pretty much me just throwing arbitrary stuff up that I wanted to throw on there, right? So it ended up being a lot of acupuncture and martial arts kind of stuff, some music or whatever. It's just like stuff, because I was throwing stuff on YouTube. Yeah. But one of the things I started doing, because I was traveling all over the place, doing martial art camps and conferences, I was meeting people who were phenomenal martial artists and have been doing this even longer than I have. I've been doing it a while, but like these people have been doing it 40, 50 years. It wasn't about politics. It really wasn't necessarily about styles, or it wasn't anything about that. I literally asked them 2 questions, and that's what I call it, 2 questions. I asked them, 1, how long have they been in the martial arts? And 2, at this point, what's the best thing they've gotten out of it? Which is pretty much exactly what you did. And I'm like, and now that question is being brought to me, I'm like, but one of the things I found by doing that is that it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And one gentleman, he answered it, and I resonated with it hardcore. And what he said was, well, that depends on where I was in my career. He said, every 10 years, it changes. The best thing. Like when somebody first gets into martial arts, they may be interested in, kicking butt, and then eventually maybe it's more about just physical health. And maybe later on more it's about mental health. Maybe it's more about camaraderie and stuff like that. And to be honest, at this stage of the game, to answer your question, being that there are so many benefits that I receive from the martial arts, I'm going to say probably the best thing is the camaraderie and the community. Some of my best friends are martial artists, people that I know have my back. I have a circle that's only so big, and there are quite a few martial arts in that circle. The camaraderie, it was definitely one of the things that I benefit from the martial arts. My favorite right now.
That's really cool, because I feel like that is something that I feel with the EMS community as well.
Exactly.
It's the camaraderie for sure. So I bet you feel it at your employment as well.
I do. Even though I'm the new guy, I actually did because I moved and I had to go through all this stuff to get my South Carolina license and a new job and all that. I ended up doing a video on the number one thing you need to do if you're moving and getting a new job in EMS. So I ended up just putting that video out. I think I did it last week or week before. So I don't know if you saw that, but
no, I did see that.
Did.
I'll put that up in the right-hand corner so people can go watch that as well.
Oh, cool.
And actually, I was going to mention one of the other reasons that you and I had started speaking is because you asked me to film a snippet of what my channel entailed, and
yep.
And I was so excited, but I will put that video link as well, because that's a really, really good video, and it highlights several EMS educators. You should go check out all their channels too, because they're great.
Absolutely.
So what are there any plans for any future offerings, or are you just kind of sticking to getting that tour going again?
Right now, I'm just kind of focused on getting everything solid here.
Fair
making sure the family's taken care of, making sure the household's taken care of. Being in a new environment, I got to make sure everything's solid. Definitely move along with the tour. And it was kind of cool before was that my kids were homeschooled for a little bit. So therefore, when I went, on tour and I did gigs and whatnot. One I remember specifically was the Saratoga Martial Arts Festival. They actually came with me. And then I did another one in Canada. They came with me, and those are fun,
Yeah. Yeah, getting to involve the whole family. I bet that's really fun. So, do you have a website or should we direct people to your YouTube, Instagram, maybe Facebook?
Yeah, that would probably be better.
I'll put all of the links to your Instagram, your Facebook, and your YouTube channel. And I would encourage everybody watching this video just to go check it out. It has lots of good information for those who are considering the EMS field or who are already in it. I just want to thank you again for coming on. I just love showcasing people who show up in a positive way, and you do just that. So thanks again, Chris.
Thank you, Stacey. I really appreciate it again. This has been awesome.